Hey there, we have Charles Carillo, an international investment expert, and he'll talk to us how he helps foreign investors get access to U.S. commercial real estate. If you're a foreign investor, you're going to want to listen to this. All that and more coming up.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Charles Carillo. Charles is a real estate investor and managing partner at Harborside Partners, as well as the host of Global Investors Podcast. Charles, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
I really look forward to it. We was talking pre-show that you have some roots here in Connecticut, so it's always good to talk to another local guy and kind of share our whims about the weather and things that we don't like about the state and stuff, even though there's a lot of things that's good about the state as well. So I appreciate you taking the time out in sunny Florida. But for people who are not familiar with, I know you have a large podcast following. But for our listeners who are not familiar with you, would you mind talk about your background and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, so I started investing in multifamily in 2006 in Connecticut, and I lived in Connecticut until 2012 before moving to Florida. And during that time, from '06 to 2012, I self-managed. We had multifamily. We had I also had some small mixed-use commercial properties in that area, and are all in one city in Connecticut called New Britain, which you're probably familiar with, in central Connecticut outside Hartford. And we still own those today. I haven't professionally managed, but for 6 years I did self-manage those, which gives you a lot of knowledge of real estate. And I come from a real estate background. My dad has been an investor in that same area, in multifamily, commercial, all different types of commercial and retail since the 80s. So it was something that when I got started, I had him as a mentor, and he kind of guided me through the process of everything goes with it when you buy a property and you don't have third-party management. And after moving down to Florida, we really started to focus on larger properties and syndications. And that's really what we focus on now here in Florida is really 75 plus units, $5 million plus acquisitions. We also look and buy smaller multifamily, commercial multifamily that in just a couple counties in Florida, so it's easier to manage. But for our larger syndications, we're really looking throughout the whole southeast of the United States. Anywhere that's landlord friendly, we're going to look at markets there.
Awesome. And then I get occasionally get some calls from foreign investors. Our show's nationally syndicated, but we get a lot of reach all over the world. So people are just always interested in learning about investing in the U.S. For the many benefits of course there is. But for people that kind of start to learn the process of investing in the U.S. eventually get discouraged because they find out the extensive process of doing this and doing that. Can you kind of walk us through maybe just a high-level overview on how you help foreign investors invest in the U.S. and kind of talk about like the process for doing that?
Right. So I have a background, previous business I was running that my brother runs full-time now. As I was in payment processing business, and we had a lot of partners and clients across the globe. And I would spend 2 or 3 months a year in Europe, mainly working with these clients and partners. And during that relationship, they're always asking you, just like they ask you as well, what else are you investing into? What else you got going on? You know what I mean? Entrepreneurs are always looking for something else and seeing what people are doing. And I tell them about investing in real estate, and they love the idea. They love all the benefits we have in the United States, which are immense. And they asked how they could do it. And I said, I had no idea. So something that my first passive investors were actually, they were from Eastern Europe that were in some of our deals. And it was something that you really learn quickly. And I've put together kind of a team, I guess you would say, of professionals. So the main thing is when someone's reaching out to us, we're going to give them a specific, like you said, like an overview of what to do and what other clients have done. And then we're going to point them in the direction of CPAs, accountants, any kind of other professionals that they might require during their process, because it's going to be a little bit different of a process. It's very similar in the beginning, but it's going to be a little different depending if they're coming in as active or passive investors. But it's really how I explain it to investors is I say, you want to come in, you're going to get what's called an ITIN number. That's done easiestly. The easiest way of doing that is done through a professional like a CPA or an accountant, or a CPA or an attorney. They can really fast track that process for you. Once you have that, you can then get an LLC, which is usually what everybody uses here in the United States for investing in property. And when you're getting that LLC, that's really going to be your holding company or your parent company. And then what you're doing after you have that is that you're able to now purchase properties in a state. So if you have that in one of those anonymity states like Wyoming, for example, and then you are buying a property in Georgia, for example, you're going to use that as the parent company for your property specific 123 Main Street LLC, Georgia LLC, and that the parent company will be your Wyoming LLC for that. So you can now take this one parent company and buy properties, or you can invest in the syndications all while using that. And the process takes, depending, it can usually take 3 to 5 months. It's a few months that it takes to get the whole everything going. But once it's done, it really allows you to kind of form an LLC, get situated in the United States. This is where I kind of pass it off to professionals, because we have a lot of different estate rules for people that are foreign, whereas currently where we are and what we're talking about right now, not counting the new administration that's coming in, is that it's about $12 million that you can pass down without estate taxes federally. That's only about $60,000 for a foreign investor. So if you're coming into the United States with any type of money, right, and you're going to make any type of investment, it's probably going to be over 60,000. So really what you need to do is you need to reach out to someone, reach out to an accountant or attorney, both of them, and figure out that are aware of your own country's laws as well. And they're going to be able to figure out tax treaties, figure out the best way of you to form your company. There's some that will, because we have a lot of Canadian investors in the United States, like you said, and that's a big thing. And there's a lot of investors that'll do that, but there's going to be less for different countries. So if you're coming from, there's less if you're coming from China, or you're coming from different areas in South America. There's really niche attorneys that you have to find, and accountants that you have to find. They're going to know those laws and know how to formulate it, so you're not getting double taxed on profits here from the United States and then from your home country. So it's really, the LLC route is what I suggest, and I suggest them to speak to a professional and start the process.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, because like I said, it's I was kind of talking to different attorneys. It's just kind of learned like the overview process, but it's like you need to find someone that knows specifically regarding your country that you're coming from to invest here, and kind of learn all the nuances, so you make sure that it's done properly. And also, you mentioned the time frame that there's always opportunities that's coming up, 3 to 5 year months, so kind of get the ball started if that's something that you're looking to pursue. And of course, working with like a sponsor that can kind of point them in the right direction as far as kind of good investments. As far as kind of like the asset class that you've been talking to international investors, are they kind of asking for any specifics as far as kind of like, are they kind of relying on your expertise to kind of lead them to the a type of investment that work for them?
When you're dealing with smaller investors, they're gonna look for a little bit more. It's not going to be as diversified, let's say. So they might come in and they'd be asking, and they really like. We've seen a lot of multifamily, and if you're buying property, if you're investing in any property where there's any type of foreign influence, like, so for example, in Florida, the whole southeast, right, of Florida. So Miami, obviously the main place, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, now coming into Orlando. I mean, I have brokers in Orlando that a quarter to a third of their business, and they don't speak any foreign languages, is foreign investors, right? Wow. It's not like their niche. It's just something that they have so much influx of investors coming from there. And, you being a U.S., if you're based in the U.S. and you can work with these investors and facilitate what they want, you're going to have a leg up on your competition, which is kind of how we work in the sense is because when they're going, if it's just a foreign investor that comes in and they're going to get a loan, like an agency loan, as we call it. And so it's a Fannie or Freddie. So for someone that's not aware, it's just $1 million plus loan where there's non-recourse, which means your personal assets are safe. In this situation, they would need twice as much of the requirements that you need as a U.S. person. So if they're able to partner with you, it makes it better for them, and it also gives you the ability to kind of facilitate their investment and work with them in some sort of partnership capacity, which is great. And a lot of larger groups and syndicators out there don't want to work with foreign investors because there's an extra couple hurdles that have to be jumped over in the process of them placing capital in the United States. So it's something that's kind of our niche of what we're working on, but it's something that it's real in all different parts of the United States. I mean, some places I always like asking where they're looking, because then I can have an idea of what they're thinking. So you have a lot of people looking in like we'd think it would be New York, LA, Miami, stuff like this. But then you hear Cleveland and you hear Indianapolis, and these markets that aren't as, let's say, popular as you would think, with international investors. But the international investors are looking all over, because just like Americans, some are looking more for appreciation. Some are looking for a market that they know. And a lot of them, which differs from US investors, a lot of them are looking for, a lot of them are looking for a safe place to put their money. And that's a huge hurdle for American investors, because if you're going up against someone that's trying to keep capital safe and you're trying to make a return, that can be quite the obstacle when you're in negotiations, because it's you have someone that doesn't have to make these type of returns that you might need to with your investors and with your capital.
That's a very good point there. I definitely agree with that a lot. As far as kind of like demand, I know with obviously during the pandemic, it disrupted the whole global economy. Have you seen a little slowdown in investment? What's the kind of sentiment that you're seeing from international investors as we head towards 2021? I know that you talked to a lot of the economists. They're kind of seeing some, certain asset classes performing well, that performed well and then going to perform well. But did you see any type of change in flux of as far as capital coming into the U.S. from international investors?
I've read about there being a slowdown in investment, but I haven't realized it myself and with our company. So I don't, you read something and you kind of take it and you do your own research on anything you read online, right? And that's kind of how it goes, no matter where you read it. Exactly. So I'm told that there's a slowdown in it, and it might be, and who knows what markets they're really reviewing. They might be looking at Manhattan, and that doesn't affect anybody with what we're doing, because no one's buying property for value add in Manhattan. The most of us aren't. And what's really happening there, or it might also be high-end penthouses in Miami or in New York, and these things don't have anything bearing on our business. This is just they're just buying a bank account to put their money in, and if they're doing less of that, then that could be a disruptor, but it's usually not affecting us at all. What we've seen is it's been very consistent, where we've had a lot of investors. I think during COVID and during it, just like U.S. investors weren't aware of what's really going on and what's going to happen. And most of us were being very conservative and just seeing how everything was going to pan out. And I think now that we're almost a year into it, now the U.S. is almost a year into it, we are really coming to terms, and we kind of know how we're going to be looking for the next 12 months, I think, in the sense of if it continues the same way, which I feel for 2021 is going to be very similar to, end of 21 is going to be similar to the beginning of 2021, where there's still going to be some eviction moratoriums. There's going to be people that are still sitting on the sidelines, but I feel for larger multifamily, there's been a huge increase or demand for properties and for rentals, and especially in our portfolio. And I imagine in yours as well, that we thought it would be unheard of raising rents during this pandemic, but we've actually started raising rents as of December 2020. And it's something that it's when there's so much demand out there in certain markets, it's something that we haven't really seen a slowdown. But international investors are still contacting us. They're still looking at deals. I do think they're a little bit more conservative than U.S. investors are. I think U.S. investors are a little bit more bullish. And I think international investors, they have a different perspective when it comes to a lot of government interference, because they're usually in a country that has more, let's say, government control than the U.S. does.
Yeah, very good point there. Absolutely. And as far as kind of, I know you have your podcast, the Global Investor Podcast. Can you tell us the topics that you guys talk about there, and when you guys air each week?
Yeah, so I do a weekly podcast that's on Wednesday, which it's interview format, just like this. And then I do that podcast is all about with U.S. real estate professionals. The majority of them have some sort of business with international foreign investors. A lot of them are in both. And our listenership is about 50-50. So 50% foreign, 50% US investors. So we kind of touch both, both parts of the spectrum. And then what I've started doing is I do a series that I put out on Saturday called Strategy Saturday. And it's really just myself, 5 to 8 minutes, and talking strategy about everything within real estate, something that might be happening with us. So we just did one on choosing target markets, neighborhoods, third-party management companies, different things like this that you might not get from a complete actionable steps from certain podcasts. And that's something that I kind of want to put more information out on.
Awesome. And kind of take us through a typical day for you. I know you're dealing with a lot of international investors, probably dealing with different time zones and phone calls and things like that, and of course doing the podcast show. Can you walk us through a typical workday for you, and then do you in particular have any special morning routines?
Yeah, so morning routines, I would say I wake up, I like doing reading in the morning before really getting to email, because I know once I hit that email box, it's you get lost in it, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody, doesn't matter what your industry or what your profession is. I mean, it's just you've got to make sure that you have some sort of time block. I really am getting better at time blocking, and it's just sticking to it is much harder. So I know that, I'm going to do emails for this. I've got calls that are set up during it, and having the calls kind of pushes you to keep on schedule. Whereas if it's just items that I'm doing or projects that I'm working on, I can kind of let that go by the wayside because there's no one really accountability. But if I have a call at a certain time, I have to be on it. But, I'll have calls. I try to keep it, with new investors or with current investors, I try to keep it 5 or less per day. And, it's a mix of Zoom calls for international investors and phone calls for potential U.S. investors. We'll have our weekly or bi-weekly check-ins with some of our property managers and with our teams. So I have those scheduled as well. But it's really just time blocking and, really before I'm getting into that email box, before I turn on the computer, during you doing your reading, doing your other personal activities that you kind of once you look up and it's 1 p.m. already, and I don't want that to happen. So it's something that I really kind of focus on taking care of stuff, like stuff that's really important to myself that's probably not involved with the business, which I imagine when you're morning routine as well, that when you're getting up, you're spending time and doing, praying and whatever it might be that's personal to you. And you can do that early on for your family. And it's before you end up it's 6 p.m. and you're going to dinner,
Exactly. And as far as kind of like, tools or resources that you help manage your day with your team, or, either it could be electronic or physical, is there anything that you use?
So for teams, so we use like Google Calendar for everything that we connect with, like Calendly. So if people set up a call with me, that's how we do it. I use Slack with our teams a lot, and Slack is great. For our CRMs, we'll use HubSpot, and HubSpot's awesome, which we use for working with investors, working with other professionals within the industry. We'll use, if we're doing any direct to owner marketing, we'll use Podio for that. And that's a great CRM, and it's used by a lot of wholesalers. So it's very, it's tuned for exactly that. That's, and obviously Dropbox and all Google's drives. But yeah, I think Slack is a big one. Project management, we go through Asana, but Slack's a big thing. All the teams are on Slack.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I always ask this question to all of our guests. Is something that I do and think about all the time is gratitude. What can you say you're most grateful for?
Well, I just got married a couple months ago. It was pushed off for a year almost from COVID. So I'm grateful for having, thank you very much. I'm grateful for having a wife, and I'm very close with my family, and she's close with her family as well. And it's great. And I'm really grateful for being close, because I have a lot of friends that are living in different time zones in different states from their family, which makes it a lot more difficult. So grateful for her family, grateful for my wife, and grateful for being healthy and safe in 2020 and 2021. It's amazing that, everything that's going on and having to navigate it at this time and age, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said. And how do we get in contact with you?
So if you're interested in investing in real estate, if you're US, international, wherever you're based, whether it's active or passively, it doesn't matter to me what you like to do. Contact me. You can go to directly to my contact, set up an appointment at schedulecharles.com. And when you go to schedulecharles.com, set up a 30-minute call with me at your convenience, and we can talk about how you want to be active or passive in real estate. Anything else that you have questions about, I would love to speak with you. And my company is Harborside Partners. So if you want to check that out, it's harborsidepartners.com. And my personal page is charlescarillo.com. But when you schedule, it goes right to that page anyway. So
awesome. Charles, it was a pleasure to speak with you. Like I said, we haven't touched on international investments in the U.S. Topic in this detail. So we really appreciate you sharing the time. I know a lot of our international listeners are going to get a lot of insight from this. So all best to you for this new year. Congratulations again. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Yeah. Happy New Year's to you and your family. And thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you. Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Hey there, this is Dwaine Clarke, your host of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. I want to thank you again for tuning in and hope you're enjoying this valuable content. While I got you for a quick minute, I wanted to send you an invitation to join our growing investor community. It's called the Passive Investors Club. It's a group of like-minded individuals like you who are seeking financial freedom and to build true wealth through passive investing in commercial real estate. We take a totally different approach to investing that is opposite, that is pushed by the financial advisors and what we see in the mainstream media. We like to invest in real assets that we can touch and understand and that are not subject to the wild swings of the financial markets. We don't want to be part of the herd who pursues the traditional route, leaving our financial future to Wall Street. So if you're interested in joining our group and to sharing resources and opportunities, then go to passiveinvestorsclub.com/join. Joining the club is completely free and there's no obligation. And all our members receive our free Passive Investors course along with tons of resources and content. So again, passiveinvestorsclub.com/join.